Hiya, this is the second part of my review of Homefront the Revolution. In the first part I covered the basics of the gameplay, story, sharks, and overwhelmingly mixed reviews that the game received. But this episode is going to be a little bit more personal. I'm going to be telling you why I bought this game despite its negative reputation, and why I'm deciding to cover it at all on my YouTube channel. So without any further ado, let's talk about Homefront the Revolution. So when we left off, we were standing in front of this arcade machine. Let's use it. TimeSplitters 2. Now I've spoken about games that I love, and I've spoken about games that I absolutely adore, but few come close to this. Originally released in 2002 for the PS2, Xbox and GameCube, this game was my introduction to the first-person shooter genre. Now, I mentioned in my last video that Homefront was developed by Dambuster Studios, and before them was Crytek UK. But before Crytek UK was Free Radical Design. Comprised of many of the great minds behind the likes of GoldenEye and Perfect Dark, Free Radical Design created some of the 2000's finest action games. And also Haze. But we don't talk about Haze. But then, this happened, and the classics stopped rolling out. But for a while, they were the best. They made the TimeSplitters trilogy the best sci-fi FPS series ever made. And yes, I am willing to fight you over that fact. And so 11 years after the latest release in the TimeSplitters series, we finally get something that's even remotely close to a PC release. So let's get into it. Here's the story setup. There's baddies! Oh no, they're escaping! Go get them! Listen, I didn't say the story was great. In fact, it took them 3 games to get that right. But anyway, let's time travel and kill some baddies. Off to 1990s Soviet Union we go. Most games would have you start out in some large set-piece level with some crazy action scenes and story setup and whatnot, but you can get that basic shit out of here. This is TimeSplitters. We start with a stealth horror espionage level, and it works. Show me another game series that could pull that off. And once we're actually into the game, you can probably notice the flickering. The endless flickering. Now, in case it wasn't obvious, this was not present in the original game. Yeah, this is almost certainly happening because this game was never designed for PC and certainly not for the CryEngine in 2016. But I can accept the flicker because nostalgia, goddammit. The audio is also kind of busted, as is the lighting and some of the textures, but you know, nostalgia, goddammit. Another immediate difference you may notice is the crosshair. TimeSplitters 2 did not have a fixed crosshair. Instead, it had this thing where you could unlock it like in, System Shock and whatnot, so you can do some precision aiming on a controller, but because we're playing on PC, you don't need that. And wow, that makes this game so much easier. Just compare how I do in these 2 clips. But honestly, the flickering and the aiming are not the most jarring difference between the original and this recreation. For me, it's the sound effects. Just compare the sound of these 2 explosions. And these 2 sniper shots. The difference there is pretty jarring for me because TimeSplitters was pretty spectacular in terms of sound effects. Not in terms of quality, but just in terms of identity and memorability. Like, if I was to replace the pistol sound from Homefront the Revolution, you wouldn't notice a goddamn thing, but here I feel kind of robbed. It sounds really nitpicky, and it is nitpicky, but I don't know, sometimes it's the small things that matter the most. But overall, this is a fairly accurate representation of the original game. Sadly, we only get 2 story missions out of the 10 total that were in the original, and we're completely missing the arcade mode, challenge mode, map maker, and co-op mode. But even having a little bit is nice. But is it nice enough to warrant purchasing a very poorly reviewed game? If you're me, yes. TimeSplitters was more than just a fun series. It did things that no other series did or could. It managed to have horror without becoming a horror game. It managed to utilize comedy without becoming gimmicky. It managed to turn a hollow story into one of the most memorable stories. It was clear in inspiration, but undoubtedly went its own way. And it managed to hop between genres at the drop of a hat and never feel out of place. Even in the flickery, unpolished, and heavily reduced form it is here, it's great to see. But in many ways, it's also extremely sad for a few reasons. The first being that it highlights the direction that the industry took after TimeSplitters. Compare the heavily stylized feel and unique settings of TimeSplitters with the impossibly generic feel of Homefront. And on the topic of Homefront, the short time we spend in TimeSplitters shows us some of Homefront's major flaws. The story of TimeSplitters works because it doesn't try to be grandiose or important, and those two things are what holds Homefront back. The characters who we see seconds of each have their own easily identifiable and memorable personalities, whereas Homefront tries way too hard to emulate this and completely fails. And most importantly, TimeSplitters 2 shows Homefront how to do a fucking reliable escort quest. And while I'm on the Chicago mission with the escort quest, I want to mention something strange that I found. These bricks. Now they may look a little suspect with that odd lighting, but that's probably an engine or a recreation error, right? Wrong. This was in the original game too. And when they rebuilt it, they kept it in. Why? Why these bricks? Tell me, what do the bricks mean? Anyway, it's probably for the best that they only included the first 2 levels of the game, because the 3rd level, Notre Dame, might come across as a little, insensitive. Yikes. The true tragedy of TimeSplitters is not that the series just ended or was killed in any way, because it wasn't. It's just been put on permanent hiatus. The IP has shifted between so many different publishers and owners, and has always been at arm's reach of the original developers, but they haven't been allowed to use it. TimeSplitters 4 was in development, but it got cancelled or at the very least halted many years ago, and every single time it changes ownership, the fans are given a glimmer of hope that we may see a new game, or at the very least some kind of remaster or just a re-release, but it hasn't come so far. Who knows, maybe this year's E3, which is happening today as of uploading this, has different news, but I'm not getting too excited. Now, during editing this, I kinda got paranoid that maybe they will announce a TimeSplitters game, just in the off chance that they do announce one at E3. I just wanna say, I didn't know about it. So, yeah, this might date the video real quick. Anyway, back to the original recording. So, to answer the question I posed in the last video, why did I play Homefront? Yes, it was partly due to its terrible reviews, but it was almost entirely due to the fact that the game's developers haven't given up. They gave us a reminder of what could be, even if it is encased in a pretty unremarkable package. It's worth it. And in playing Homefront, as generic as it is, I'm given a little bit of hope, because it shows that no matter how many things change, some things, well, some things never will. Thanks for watching.